Morning students, welcome to our YouTube channel Bharat Bharati Public School Buddha, and this is Sandeep sir presenting you with the very famous topic of the Great Indian Revolt of 1857. Now, for any revolt, before we go into the detail of the topics, revolt against the Britishers is a testimony to the fact that the mass in India or Indian masses from all walks of life became very upset with the Britishers, and because of that they were not feeling very comfortable under the British rule. See the change. Britishers came to India in the year 1612, 1680 when the East India Company was established. By a charter there in England. The 1612 at Surat in Gujarat, they had established their factory. Factory in those days does not mean the industry that we mean actually. Factory means East India Company's members and workers were known as factors, and where those factors were living were called factory. Okay. So it was, you may say, a combination of factory was a combination of warehouse plus the management offices. Which storage of the goods also were being done under the same roof, as well as management. They had opened their factories in Surat and started dealing with the Indian product, about which you have studied in your previous chapter. After some point of time, they realized that their margin of profit was getting lesser. The reason behind that was a lot of other competitors, both from the European trading houses as well as from the Indian merchants, were available on Indian land. And because of this, they were unable to get or maximize their profit, the Britishers. In the beginning, we have studied, they were hardly focused and concerned about having their rule in India. They were here exclusively for the trading purposes. Plus the political situation in the beginning were also so strong and so impermeable that it was not possible for them to establish their political foothold when the pre-Mughals were living in India. Because they are coming in India, establishing their factory in India, were coinciding with that of the pre-Mughals. Up to Aurangzeb, it was almost impossible for them to penetrate through the Indian political system, and they were contented and happy with whatever they were doing and taking from India and earning profit. Some of the commodities or the Indian commodities that they were trading with were Indian spices, cotton textiles from India, muslin clothes in particular, and gems and jewelries, in addition to a wide range of items which were highly and hotly demanded in European markets. Things were going good, but it is a human psychology plus the sense of superiority both, that they wanted to control this entire business from India completely and strongly. For that one, they need to defeat first of all, or expel European merchants from Indian land, plus also exterminate the dominance and prevalence of Indian merchants. Both these things can be done only when they would be in the political control of or under As long as the administration of India was not under their control, they cannot do like that. To exterminate your competitors, you need to fight many wars. And for taking exclusive decision of attacking and invading over others, you need to be in a completely administrative control of the system. Or the second one, you need to take the permission from others, and as long as you were under the influence of anybody, you cannot take independent decisions, and as a result, you have a limited scope of moving forward. With all these factors in the mind, they were looking for the opportunity to make the exclusive control of Indian business and Indian trade. And they got in the form of political over ambition or ambitious politicians of those days, the rulers of those days after the death of Aurangzeb in 1707. The later Mughals, who once upon a time were used to be the governors of different provinces in India when the pre-Mughals were living or ruling, they started declaring themselves independent, taking once again the advantage of the weakness of central authority. Means, to put it simple, in different provinces or the different Indian regions, those governors became independent rulers. Now they became independent rulers, but their subordinates also had the ambition of becoming ruler, because everybody was there washing their hands in this opportunity and wanted to establish their authority. We are not going into how they did all these things, because coming back on to the main topic of the revolt of 1857, I am only just trying to make a precursor of event from all this that actually led to the 1857 revolt. Now they became the political master of India after a few wars in India. Some of them were very important, like the War of 1857, better known as the Battle of Plassey. Second, the War of 1764, popularly known as the Battle of Buxar. These two wars fought by the British officials or Britishers or East India Company, supported of course by the British Empire there in England. Victory in those two wars, this 1757 war or the Battle of Plassey, actually opened the door for the Britishers to enter into the political scenario of India. And the victory in Battle of Buxar actually gave them the opportunity to consolidate their position. So both these victories, in summation we may say, had given them the license to control over the Indian trade. After becoming the ruler of India, they started taking the decisions and furthering their goal. They actually wanted to control the Indian trade. But there were equally other competitors in the form of French, in the form of Dutch, in the form of Portuguese, plus Indian merchants. For that one, you need to have a battle or the wars, and a series of wars were being fought, especially against the French, an Anglo-French war in Indian history, about which you had studied in the previous class. previous chapter is very important in this context. However, after emerging as the final winner, these Britishers became the political master of India. Now, they wanted to control the Indian people and Indian revenue. In those days, even today, forget about those days, even today agriculture happened to be occupying the largest share in the Indian GDP, okay, especially in terms of employment generation. A lot of people in India, in fact 60 to 65% of Indian workforce are still occupied with the agriculture. In those days, this percentage, this share was even bigger. To put it simple, in those days, agriculture happened to be the main means of income for the people as well as the main medium of revenue generation for the Britishers. Fine. In order to control the Indian agriculture, the British in India came up with certain systems. Some of them are very popular and worth mentioning here are the permanent settlement, then we have Raiyatwadi system, then we have Mahalwadi system, and all these systems ultimately were very exploitative for the Indian peasants and farmers. Literally, Indian rural population, rural workforce were literally very unhappy and upset with the Britishers and with these policies. So one of the reasons, so coming back to the revolt, and as I have told several times in my previous videos, go back and search it, that the process of revolt is not overnight or of a sudden. Unhappiness when keep on growing and becoming deep rooted, people became upset. And this frustration for the people were somewhere allying them together to protest against the British officials or their representatives found in their localities or regions. But when those protests were either unheard or subdued, they were left with no option but revolt. Revolting against the system, no matter how much upset you are or how much unhappy you are, is not a child's play. You need proper planning. Absence of leadership was there definitely, because all of them were literally the working people and not so educated one, both. Most of the time, they were engaged in earning their livelihood and hardly talking about these party politics as we used to do today. All these things were not the part of their lifestyle. Second thing, the planning factor is required. That was also missing. And most importantly, in order to go for anything, you need the resource. And these people, the rural people themselves, were suffering for earning their livelihood. Forget about sparing resource for any other purposes. So they were forced to accept all these exploitations on them, and all of them were considering it as their fate and destiny to tolerate these things. Now, coming the next one, means the rural landscape, the rural population were upset and unhappy with the British system. Peasants and farmers, to put it simple, were unhappy and dissatisfied with the Britishers and were looking for the opportunity for the change. Now, here is, we know that there are always two types of people: one waiting for the change, another creating those changes that they require to excel their life further. However, one of the reasons of 1857 revolt as such was that the rural landscape, the rural population were not in good terms with the Britishers. Second factor, that is what this very big factor was there. But then most of these peasants and farmers are common people, and we know that when the commoners don't have the courage nor the resources nor the planning nor idea to take any steps, so they are somewhere back to the wall and only waiting for the things to improve. They literally cannot do anything unless they were not instigated, motivated, inspired to do something. That inspiration literally comes from the middle class. Okay, when we talk about the class, not caste, class distinction, they also sometimes play a very important role in bringing changes. How? I'm trying to throw the light on that. Okay. Now, class-wise, all these factors are normally the general introductory factors in order to bring people, motivate people to revolt against the system in order to improve their life, that we call the revolution. Okay? But then, what are those factors? First of all, because the basic thing is the resource. The basic thing is, even today we have been looking for the changes in the society that mostly comes from the upper class side, or the people who have been living a very good, well-to-do life, because understandably they are supposed to be resourcefully rich. Second, they are in the control of the political power as well as near to the persons who are in charge of these powers. Third, they themselves are the role models for the common people who are literally following them, and their education, their literacy rate, their education is very high, which is in the case of the common people are missing. How all these factors are also motivating people? Let us see. Class-wise, this is all coming from the French Revolution days. I'm not going into detail of that one. But class-wise, we can categorize people under three categories: upper class, middle class, and lower class. Upper class means ultra rich people or rich to ultra rich people. Lower class means resourcefully very poor. They were very poor. They were very rich. These guys, the people coming in this category, were neither very much poor nor very much rich. But then they are somewhere in a good, well-to-do situation. Wherever the revolution, revolt or the changes took place, actually this group led them. Because these very rich people, as I have told, they were politically very near to the ruler. getting many advantages, privileges and benefits from the ruler. So if you are getting any advantage from the system, somebody who is at the helm and the center of the system, if some person is very near to the system or in the good book of the system, that person even committing wrong, doing nothing, sitting idle, will dictate terms thanks to that in the good book of the system, would never like the type of the system to be changed. Why so? Okay, because he or she is enjoying all the luxuries in the system or under the system. So upper class who were very rich and their richness thanks to okay. Now this ultra rich people would never mind or would never like the system to be changed. Sorry for the interruption actually. These interruptions are somewhere breaking the continuity of the lecture. But okay, coming back, these are the part and parcels of the things. No, nothing to mind over that. So these ultra rich people never wanted the things to be changed. These very poor people are not in a position to change anything. That is what we have discussed. And common people, normally the majority of the population in those days or even today or in mostly in almost all ages comes under this category. Because of them the changes are not possible, but they cannot initiate for the changes in the absence of knowledge and resources both. So these are the mostly the follower groups. They would definitely follow, but there must be somebody to lead. And these leaders are coming from middle class who were mostly educated, intelligent people. So being educated, they have the knowledge of about what? They have the knowledge of the actual reason of the problem, okay, or any problems. For example, in India or Indian society happen to be the caste-based society. Politically, constitutionally, any discrimination or distinction made on caste is being illegal after independence. So theoretically it is all good. But in practice, that age-old practice of the caste system to some extent is still prevalent. What happened? Indian society was a fourfold society. Upper caste and lower caste, they were divided into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. Brahmins and Kshatriyas were the upper caste, followed by Vaishyas also, who were mostly traders and merchants. They are very important factor in the running of the system because they contribute for the money. And the lower caste people were the sufferers. Now, whenever on account of whatever, because they were the victim of the untouchability also, which is highly an inhuman act, but whenever they were been coming across such a treatment by the upper caste people, they always used to console themselves and blaming their destiny for any this of that thing. That they were always blaming that because of the destiny, this is they are bound to follow this. However, that is not the fault of their destiny. It was actually the fault of that system. Who would identify that? Upper caste people would definitely not, simply because they were enjoying everything. If in any system an individual or a group of individuals enjoying the things, living the life of a luxury, even if doing nothing, that most of them were been sitting idle and doing nothing. Actually, the main work was being done by their subordinates, but they were enjoying the system. That is what we call exploitation. But then even after exploiting somebody, if I am enjoying everything, why should I stop that exploitation or think of everything? Okay. So there was no change coming from the upper caste. Lower caste people or the lower class people were not in a position to initiate changes. It is the middle class people who were educated plus resourceful that the idea of revolution had taken birth in their mind. They wanted changes. So this is what the leadership is required. When we go into the revolt of 1857, we have discussed one of the factors of 1857 revolt was the British agricultural policy made a large landmass of rural India, which at that point of time was mostly the rural people, the peasants and farmers. They were unhappy and upset with the British system. Now, second category were the category of the landlords, who were the henchmen of, who were the followers. Henchman is another word. Henchmen means followers. Okay. These people were the followers of the Britishers because they were getting all these landlordship thanks to the British policy. So why should they take a step to revolt against that system or bring any change for the system? But if we go through in detail, that we had discussed in the class also, there were many clauses or the provisions under the permanent settlement. One of them was that the land was given to the some people on a permanent basis. The person who were receiving the land grants or the land from the British were known as the landlords. But then their landlordship were always in danger on the condition that in return they had to pay a handsome amount of money to the Britishers. If for any reason or some reason they failed to pay that amount, because Indian agriculture, the source of income even for these people were the prosperity of agriculture, and agriculture in those days were highly unpredictable. Even today it is unpredictable. In those days it was all dependent on the mercy of the nature, and natural forces are not regular and continuous. Sometimes over flooding damages the crop, sometimes the drought hitting the crop badly, and in any of the cases whenever the harvest was poor, the income for the people concerned and connected coming low, and they were not in a position to either give rent or to sustain their life. Okay. The moment, no matter what happens to you, I am a British person representing the British system. I had given you the land, in return you have promised me to pay a certain amount of money, which happened to be very big and handsome in those days. So you have to pay to me and if that payment for any logical reason or illogical, I am not going to, that is not my tension, is your botheration. Your landlordship will be snatched, and many landlords of the past became common people once their land is been snatched from them. Okay, that made them also hostile to the Britishers, because two reasons are happening, and that is one is a psychological, another is very real reason. Because once you have enjoyed the luxuries of life, even something has been calming down so far your living style or lifestyle is concerned, you will be feeling upset and finding it very difficult to cope up with the situation. Bring in your imagination and just think about those very high profile people unable to sustain committing suicide and this, that. Why? Because they were in a very good position in comparison to the common people, we people of India. Okay, most of these people were living a luxurious life, but then a slight decline into their lifestyle we have been making them upset, and that upset they are finding it very difficult to sustain their old lifestyle. So that made them upset. Second, if you are living at a particular level, even if you are living below par, you are trying your level best to come to at par and above par. But then once you have, it is a very common human psychology. If you are doing something, if somebody is not giving you the promotion or not acknowledging your effort, you would be keep on doing and not feeling bad. Okay, keep on doing. But once you have been promoted and elevated to certain level, and then for any reason or no reason you have been demoted or demotion takes place, you have been feeling upset with the system. That exactly happened with the landlords. So common people were upset because of those agriculture policies, because of the lacunas in the permanent settlement and consequent impact on the landlords. This very effective mass of India, effective why? Their numbers were of course little, but they were a very rich and a powerful person. So when a rich and powerful person become hostile to the system becomes vulnerable. That is for sure. Immediate decline may not take place, but gradual, slow death is bound to take place. That's it, that they were also hostile. Now Britishers initiated. So the first one is that agriculture policy. Second, that the landlords and the rich people also Indians became hostile to some extent against the Britishers. The third reason is the religious policy of the Britishers. But before going into that, okay, we will be going into that section in my next class tomorrow or some other day. So today is stopping here, and keep connected to me for the different parts and episodes of this particular chapter. Till then, take very good care of yourself. Bye.